Wayne?
Thank you. How's lunch today, everybody? Tasty? Good? I'm so happy to be here interrupting your lunch. Seriously, Brand Networks is very pleased to be able to sponsor today's event. You, as an audience, are a highly, highly coveted group. One that we certainly endeavor to sell to and to influence. So this is an awesome opportunity for us, and we're very happy to be here talking to you today. It's a super intriguing topic, this idea of what will ad tech and advertising in general look like in 5 years, in 2021. I see on the program for the event, it says after ad tech. As an ad tech provider, we prefer to think of it as with ad tech, because we think ad tech continues to play a role for many years to come, and hopefully a helpful one. So we'll talk a little bit about the idea of ad tech in 2021 and advertising in 2021. How many of you, just quick show of hands, have heard of Brand Networks or are a Brand Network customer? Okay, small group, about a half dozen. That's great, good to know. We are a platform for cross-channel social advertising, okay, through software and services. So if you're interested in advertising across any of the major social media platforms, we're a software platform that lets you do that by learning one set of instructions through our platform to manage your ads in that cross-channel fashion. All right, let's get right into it. That'll be the end of the commercial message. I think you've heard a little bit today already the idea that consumers in the future are going to be in the driver's seat. I think we probably all feel that consumers are in the driver's seat now, but that will get increasingly more acute 5 years from now in 2021, which is why we have this title, Powerful Customers Will Show Us the Way. In 2021, we believe the power will have shifted completely. We're already in this state today where control has shifted to the consumers. There was a time not so long ago where strong monolithic brands and companies dictated their will through marketing, through advertising to the consumer. But that day is, I think, already far over, and again, it gets more acute as time goes on. Thanks to things like social media, you now have vocal, connected consumers who have all of the power. They have the power to comment actively as they interact with your brand, as they interact with brand expressions and extensions like advertising. It's literally up to the minute. And they can voice what they like and don't like, and through those preferences can actually eliminate your ability to market to them. And I think that's the biggest and scariest thing as we look into the future, 5 years and more, is that consumer preference and consumer control can really make it incredibly difficult for us to do our jobs. So what are those challenges, perhaps in 2021? They're challenges today, but again, they get sharper, they get more acute as we move into the future. Fragmentation, there are so many channels. Where do you put your advertising dollars? How do you focus your plans to make sure that you're reaching those powerful consumers? Audiences are distracted and fatigued, partly because there are too many channels, right? And there are too many of us trying to get their attention. Ad blockers, I know ad blockers were talked about earlier today, but they're certainly disrupting digital to some extent. I don't see any reason to continue to do so, although the models around ad blocking will change. This is, again, a tool that put into consumers' hands, allows them to exert control over how we influence them, right? And again, the idea that powerful consumers will exert control via algorithmic preferences. So one thing to keep in mind about social is that Facebook and others have programmed their algorithms to watch what the consumer is doing and to dynamically and algorithmically alter the feed change what the consumer sees based on their actions and behaviors. So even if a consumer is not sophisticated enough to tell Facebook in a click on this button fashion saying, I don't want to see this, Facebook is watching the activities and in the background exerting the influence control that the consumer is saying they want by the actions they're taking. This is kind of insidious, right? And we have no control or any influence over this. The coders do, the programmers who are putting this together. But the point is if you're not relevant, if you're not personalized in your activities, whether the consumer chooses to say, I don't want to see this isn't relevant to me by clicking that little box, that little option that the social networks are providing. And I think you're going to see that across all channels because it appeals to users, right? And it could be a way for them to get around ad blocking in non-native channels. We have to be purposefully relevant. Otherwise, the algorithms are going to make our jobs really, really hard, whether we want it to or not. So what does this mean for advertisers? We talked a little bit about this already, but native and social, and there are obviously distinctions between native advertising and social advertising, although social advertising as a vehicle, the ad units are inherently native, right? Because the ad units live in the feed. And the more relevant and native those feel, the more successful they will be as ad units. So native and social are vital because they blend in. They feel more relevant. They don't feel like a distraction or an interruption. And powerful consumers do not like to be distracted. They do not like to be interrupted. So the more you can feel native on any channel, the better off you're going to be. Clearly, video is incredibly powerful. I've got some data later on in the presentation that sort of proves that out. We all know this, right? But a video-first strategy is going to be vital moving into the future. If you're not planning around that, you have to be. For any channel, but certainly for social. The idea of relevance and personalization, I've already hit on that pretty hard. You have to be relevant. Sometimes companies become relevant by accident because their creative strikes a chord, it shows up on the right channel, at the right time, with the right message. I think the opportunity for technology is to let technology influence the things that are hard to figure out, like the right creative at the right time, right? Because you can take data about what's going on in the outside world and have that sync with the timing of your creative and the channel of your creative. And that takes some of the relevance burden away from you as a human being working tirelessly as a media buyer or as a creative to make sure that you're showing up in the right place at the right time. It's very hard to predict these things. We can be more, I think, deterministic about it. People, not cookies. If you are not marketing to actual human beings, you've probably, I hope, I've all heard the term people-based marketing. It's becoming more popular. I think as marketers, we're used to using demographics and other things in a broad swath fashion to say, hey, we're going to go target people that we think look like this, that are like this, that sort of have these interests. The beautiful thing about social, which is where we live, is that you can target real people who, by the information they have entered themselves, have very specific qualities, likes, habits. So your marketing there should be a place in your marketing where you are targeting actual people. And we'll get into the greater detail on this. Part and parcel of this is the idea of deterministic, not probabilistic. Deterministic strategies let you target actual people. Probabilistic is guessing. And then what are some of the ways that you can make, practically, today and into the future, that you can make your content more relevant, more personalized? The idea of user-generated content on social is gaining serious steam. We're seeing it in our own client base, and I'll touch on that a bit more later. And then the idea of aligning your brand with a cause. That's another way to create sort sort of genuine, authentic, impact-based advertising that people, consumers, want to align with. And that can be a strategy for creative. Let's move on. So the data today tells us that about 30%, 28% of all online time is spent in social channels. If you factor in messaging apps, it's even higher. It's 30+%. And what we've seen over the past few years is that the percentage of online time spent on social goes up between 2 and 5% a year. So you do the math. This is today. Project those numbers forward 5 years from now. A huge percentage of online time will be spent on social and probably native social mobile apps. And then who knows how much time will be spent on messaging. Clearly, Facebook and others think this is going to be hot because they've opened up an advertising channel via messaging. 80% of adults, 79% of adults access social at least monthly. I think people in this room, it's probably daily, minutely for me. News feeds, the idea of a news feed or feed in general, that dominates. And because the feed, again, is algorithmically generated, right? And the algorithmically generated feed is everywhere. It used to be that time, right, chronologically based feeds dominated. That's going out of fashion because all the platforms have to make their money off of advertising, so they need an algorithmically generated feed. The idea that Facebook is watching you, it's watching your stated preferences, as well as those that it sees from your behaviors and activities and clicks and where you pause and for how long you pause. The fact that the algorithm is driving how that feed is assembling as you scroll with your thumb, right? The idea of relevance is vital to that because news feeds, algorithmically generated news feeds, are so incredibly powerful. Native, social, mobile, vital. Personalized, relevant content, vital. Ad blockers. So AdBlock Plus, popular ad blocking tool, surveyed, 50% said they would stop blocking ads if they felt content was more relevant to them. I think we all know this, but it's interesting to see the stat that it's just about creating content that works. And if you do, get a 50% gain immediately without resorting to any kind of trickery, any kind of weird business models. Just make it more relevant, and it'll work harder for you, right? I know it's very easy to say that. It's hard to do it. But technology, data with your creative and your channels can help you, if you use it the right way, be more relevant. And in a 2021 world, this is a very similar scenario. I talked a little bit about the idea of deterministic and probabilistic. We have to be targeting real people. Deterministic lets you target an actual human being. You know that you are reaching people with certain categories of interest or income or whatever, because the social channels enable you to do this. It's not we think we're reaching people like this. It's that we are, in fact, targeting only those people who fit into this category. Probabilistic targeting messages, targeting mechanisms, they're just a guess. We think, and chances are you are reaching some of the right kind of people. But this is the idea of, in the digital world, using cookies, does your attribution method follow across device? Does it go from offline to online? There's much greater likelihood using a people-based marketing and a deterministic strategy that you will be able to follow people with your content across devices and from online to offline actions. It's complicated. But you've got a much greater likelihood that it'll work here and a much greater likelihood that it falls apart with a probabilistic methodology. So you want to target real people. Native advertising formats. think we all inherently feel like we know what native is, but here's a definition courtesy of Forrester Research. Any form of paid or sponsored content that directly and transparently contributes to the experience of the site or platform where it appears by aligning with the format, context, and purpose of that site or platform's editorial content. And we use editorial broadly speaking. Editorial could be your Facebook newsfeed, which doesn't truly have editorial influence. But what do we mean by format, context, or purpose? It wears the clothing of the place where it appears, right? When in Rome, act like a Roman. The intent, and this is a big one, this is what turns people on to ad blockers and makes them so fierce about using them. The intent is to add, not tax, the experience. Ad blocking is there because they don't want the ads to get in the way of their experience. So they don't want their experience to be taxed, right? So native ad formats, regardless of the channel, contribute to the experience. They don't tax it. And then, the purpose is in line with the people that are there, right? So how do you create, without killing yourself, how do you create the most relevant, the most personalized ads that feel native, that feel like they're there for a reason that matches why the viewer is there, right? The secret, which isn't much of a secret, is data. You have to use data to tell you what's going on in the outside world and align that data, sync that data and those events that the data is derived from to your ads, to your creative, to where the ads show up, to when the ads show up or why the ads show up, and to the channel. So if you do it properly, and you need the help typically of some technology to do this right, to do this in a way that scales, you can sync data to sports scores, to an individual player scoring a point in a particular game, or to the score in general. So if you're somebody who follows a particular player and they're having a great game and you sponsor the sneaker that player wears, well, a good opportunity to promote content that's relevant is the moment when they are wearing your sneaker and have had that incredibly high-scoring game and can push that via probably a social channel or some digital channel to the viewer. If you make Claritin, you care that allergies are incredibly high in Massachusetts and to be in Florida, because you're going to market your product based on high pollen counts in Massachusetts to people who are geotagged as being from Massachusetts, right? And you can make some money off their misery, right? You can gain greater engagement because they're sniffling and sneezing at that particular moment. Why not show them an ad, right, when pollen count is particularly high? But you need data to sync your creative and the place it's going to show up. Weather, wind conditions, rain, snow, temperature, these are all drivers of data syncing opportunities. And this is all, it could be TV ads. Make sure you're syncing your television broadcasts with your social so that as people are reading on the phone, they're getting a reinforced message. Ad shows up on TV, ad shows up on social, surround sound effect, right? But these are our third-party data sources. You can also tie it to inventory data in a particular store, at a particular warehouse, in a particular geography, client-side data, right? And have sales promotions or couponing efforts triggered to a particular geography driven by inventory levels that you want to influence, right? So the opportunity to leverage platforms to align what's happening with data driven by events, either outside third-party data or inside first-party data, your company, and align that to what you're doing with your ads, incredibly powerful source of relevance that isn't dependent on chance. We all know about the Oreo cookie social ad that wasn't even an ad. It was, I think it was organic content. I can't remember now. That showed up, I think it was during the Super Bowl? I'm forgetting now. That was right time. You know, the creative team was on alert, looking for the right thing to say. This thing happened. They said, you know, Oreos go great in the dark, while the stadium had lost power during the game. I think this was like 2 or 3 years ago. That was just chance. There's no way to scale that. These things can scale, massively scale, because they're dependent on data and technology. And that's what you want. And the urgency and the need, again, will get only more acute 5 years from today as it is now. Okay, so there's the idea that you're going to get high levels of engagement on ads that are more relevant. We all know that, right? That just inherently, it just feels right. But at least according to Facebook, relevance costs you less. Because they have, it's an algorithm after all, they have a set of equations that look for high relevance, and your weighted bid, which is what you actually pay, benefits from an ad or a stream of ads, mathematically, benefits from relevance. So your weighted bid, what you pay for each ad that shows up, is lower if you create a more relevant ad. And it's watching and measuring this through time. So relevance isn't only good for creating more engagement and getting people to interact with your content, it's good for the bottom line. And we know this is true for Facebook. We don't have the exact way they're measuring it, but we know these are the factors. This is also true for the other platforms. We have a little less visibility into them right now. Google operates in a similar fashion. So what are the other drivers of relevance? You heard me earlier in the presentation mention the idea of user-generated content. This happens to be a sort of mini case study from our client base, Crown Resorts, which is a huge hospitality brand in Asia-Pac, in the Asia-Pac region, similar to a Marriott or a Hilton here. It's an interesting cross-pollination here because they knew that people going to their resorts were experiencing their resorts and posting photos of their experiences on Instagram. Through our platform, they were able to take that user-generated content through an approval process, again, powered by technology, one of our technology partners, and use that user-generated content for a Facebook ad campaign. So obviously they're, Facebook and Instagram, same parents, but there was rich content on Instagram of people experiencing Crown Resorts. The restaurants, the food, the events, and they used that in their ad campaigns, and they saw great results because they took this user-generated content and let it drive their ads. So their CPM, 21% lower, 40% more impressions, and this is all based on sort of their typical campaigns. 25% higher positive sentiment on the campaigns, and 61% lower cost per like. And these were the things that they wanted to measure across this. The rise of video ads, obviously this is important. We did a study of the first 6 months worth of Instagram advertising in the back half of last year. And one of the things that we saw on our own platform, we measured 1.6 billion ad impressions just on Instagram. And we saw that video ads went from 9% of the total ad volume in September to 23% in December. Massive increase in just a few months' time. And when we do this study again for our Q1 data, we expect a significant jump beyond that. So this isn't just, it feels like video is important and everybody's telling us video is important. Based on the ad volume of billions of impressions running through our platform, this is what we're actually seeing. Invest here. Everyone else is. And then the idea of aligning with a cause, doing good while doing well. One of our clients, Guess, in Europe, sponsored Denim Day, which is a cause focused on decreasing interpersonal violence. This campaign ran for 2 weeks, created 22 million impressions in that 2-week period, 500,000 ad engagements, 350,000 video views. And they didn't spend a ton of money on this campaign. Big brand, but they didn't spend a ton of money on it. But it was pretty successful. And again, people like to align with a cause. User-generated content, people like to align with themselves, right? This is about consumers being powerful and us playing to those powerful consumers. So what do we need to do by 2021? We need to play to powerful customers, and relevance is critical for that. Personalization is critical to that. We want to invest in native and social formats. Video's huge. Video's powerful for that. We don't want to get blocked. And the only way to not get blocked is to be more relevant, to be more useful, to be more native, right? And we want to target real people across devices using that deterministic, not probabilistic strategy, or at least incorporate it. And I guess one of the key takeaways is technology can help you achieve this. So it's not after ad tech in 2021, it's with ad tech. Ad tech can be your partner in succeeding 5 years from now, where the world will only be more tech savvy, more algorithmically generated. Powerful consumers, you want to be with them. There's a lot on our website. Feel free to visit to our resources page. A lot of deep stuff, a lot of light stuff, everything in between. Thank you so very much. I'd love to take your questions if there's time.
Thanks, Wayne. Does anybody have any questions for Wayne quickly? Here, and if not, Wayne, do you have a group with you, a support team?
Yes.
Can we point them out for the audience?
Back of the room.
Okay, here they are. And the names?
John and Lisa.
John and Lisa. And thanks very much, Wayne. Anybody who has specific questions, feel free to approach, and I'm sure they'd be happy to engage with you. We appreciate your support. We're going to take about 10 minutes to clean the room and get ready for the afternoon session. Thanks so much.